For 10 years, one question has surrounded this disturbing YouTube channel. Is the body in the bag real? But that's the wrong question, and it's why the mystery has never been solved. I'm going to show you that the real horror isn't what's in the bag, but why it's there. And the answer reveals a true story of family trauma, more terrifying than any fictional monster.
In the depths of YouTube, beyond the reach of trending lists and popular feeds, exist channels so strange and frightening that they challenge everything we know about the world around us.
Hi, my name is Mark, and I'm the host of the Scary Mysteries Videos channel, where darkness and mystery come to life in every video that becomes the subject of our story. Some internet mysteries lose their appeal over time, but there are others that, much like an old legend, only grow more fascinating and terrifying with each passing year. The project we will talk about today falls squarely into the latter category. Despite being created nearly a decade ago, the videos from this YouTube channel still intrigue me, evoking an instinctive, almost primal sense of fear. And the reason, I believe, is that its creator so masterfully pulls the viewer into a vortex of absolute madness that you definitely won't be able to just take what you saw and throw it out of your head. So today, we're talking about the channel Robert Helpmann. At its core is a series of 12 short black and white videos centered around two characters. The first is the creator himself, a masked figure who calls himself Robert. The second character is a disturbingly human-like figure wrapped in plastic that Robert calls Daisy. All 12 videos were uploaded on a single day, after which the channel went completely silent. Since then, the only activity on the channel has been the disappearance of a couple of the most unsettling videos, likely removed by moderators. This reduced the total number of videos to 10, but fortunately, both deleted videos have been preserved in internet archives, so despite the moderator's actions, we still have the chance to fully immerse ourselves in this disturbing story. The authorship of the Robert Helpmann channel has never been established, nor have there been convincing answers emerged to the two most pressing questions. What was the true purpose of this performance, and what, or who, is actually inside the plastic wrap? So we can only analyze the details and come up with our own versions that can somehow explain what we saw. Towards the end of this video, we'll definitely talk about a couple of the most popular theories, and then I'll share my own explanation, which, for me at least, puts everything in this story into place. So, stick around until the end. And of course, be sure to support this investigation with a like and a subscription. So, each video on this channel represents one of the 12 chapters of a creepy story about Daisy's appearance at Robert's house. It all begins with a video titled Daisy Arrives, accompanied by a deceptively innocent description. Beautiful Daisy comes to stay. She was very excited. We're all delighted she's here. At first, we're shown a static shot of an empty chair against a white curtain. Then, as if in between, a fleeting frame flashes on the screen, with a chaotic jumble of words, after which the very figure, wrapped in polyethylene, materializes in the chair. This is Daisy. As we'll see later, these word inserts appear in every video, and when pieced together, they form an entire poem which we'll definitely discuss in more detail towards the end of our story. The next video, Daisy and Friends, continues this eerie story. The description once again paints a rosy picture. Daisy and all of her loving friends gathered for a meal to celebrate her arrival. We spent hours preparing her favorite foods. It's so nice she's here. However, there are no friends on the screen. Daisy sits motionless, completely alone, and the only thing breaking the oppressive silence is the persistent buzzing of a fly unmistakably hinting at the processes of decay happening inside the plastic wrap. The next video, Daisy Settles In, shows the plastic-wrapped figure lying on a pile of linens in one of the house's rooms. The description reads, "Daisy settles in for her stay with us. Unfamiliar surroundings are easier to cope with when you are with people who love and care for you." In this video, we catch our first glimpse of the faceless host, Robert, silently observing his guest in the reflection of a mirror. This shot makes it clear that there's no one else in the house besides Robert and Daisy. All the friends and loved ones, he mentions, are merely figments of his imagination. It becomes obvious that Robert is not just filming creepy scenes. He is playing out an entire performance where he is a hospitable host, and Daisy is his living guest who has come to spend some time with him together. In the next video, Daisy unwinds, bizarre action on the screen give way to outright madness. Daisy sits in a bathtub while the masked man performs a bizarre ritual, feeding her with a spoon from a completely empty bowl. Towards the end of the video, this eerie performance is interrupted by a burst of uncontrollable rage. The man begins slamming his head against the edge of the tub, after which we're left alone with the motionless figure of Daisy. It probably won't surprise you to learn that this video was later removed by YouTube to spare its viewers from watching such a heartbreaking spectacle. In the fifth video, Tucking Daisy In, the eerie staging evolves into something even more personal and disturbing. We are shown Daisy lying in bed, but this time, under the covers next to her, is Robert himself, who, at the end of the video, leaves this frightening resting place and turns off the camera. The sixth video, Daisy Feeds the Birds, is deceptively monotonous. Its dull rhythm is broken only by the sudden appearance near the end of a strange object next to Daisy that resembles a key. However, the very next video, Daisy Tumble, presents one of the story's major turning points. We see Daisy lying at the bottom of a staircase in a pose that suggests someone may have deliberately pushed her down. The good-natured description for the video sounds like a blatant mockery here. Even people as graceful as Daisy take a bad step once in a while. Don't worry, Daisy. We'll kiss it better. In the eighth video, Daisy helps out in the kitchen, where the figure in the polyethylene bag is simply lying on the floor, as well as in the ninth, Daisy plays hide and seek, where she is sitting in a closet with a doll. Almost nothing noteworthy happens, except for the doll suddenly changing its position during the video. However, immediately following this scene is a true explosion of violence in the video titled Daisy Playing. This is one of those videos that we will not show in its entirety. Here, Robert's aggression reaches its apex. He hangs Daisy on the wall and then repeatedly stabs her with a knife. At the same time, the video's description is completely inconsistent with the footage, telling a story of how Daisy was supposedly having fun on a swing. This disconnect between the text and reality suggests that by the time this video was filmed, its creator already had entirely lost control over his narrative. The grim story reaches its climax in the final two videos. In Daisy Makes a Mess, the kitchen table transforms into something resembling an operating table, where Robert, armed with the same knife, continues his repulsive manipulations, and his aggression here reaches its zenith. However, in the concluding video, Daisy leaves. Robert's cold cruelty suddenly gives way to fervent desperation. At the beginning of this video, the figure in the polyethylene bag is lying by the front door. Suddenly, the door swings open, and in the next moment, Daisy is gone, and the aggressor with the knife in his hand transforms into a desperate, abandoned figure. Even the description for this video resembles a disjointed, grief-stricken cry. No! She left us, and now there is no Daisy. We want Daisy back. She should be here. Always here. With this final message, the channel falls silent forever, cutting off the narrative at its peak and leaving nothing behind but questions. So, what are we left with in the end? We see a man in a mask, immersed in a complex, dangerous illusion. He either constructs a mannequin or uses something eerily resembling a corpse to stage a perverse spectacle. A spectacle where the role of a caring father ultimately gives way, to the feral rage of a knife-wielding madman. And the fact that YouTube deemed 2 of these videos too inappropriate for its platform serves as the strongest confirmation. What unfolds on screen goes far beyond typical performance art. This leads us to the core questions that still remain unanswered. What exactly was this? And what force compelled this person not only to create such a nightmare, but to share it with the world? And of course, the biggest question that has troubled viewers from the very beginning: what exactly is in the bag, a dummy or a real corpse? After close analysis, most internet detectives have concluded that it's most likely a mere imitation. A careful examination of the videos revealed too many inconsistencies. The figure's contours constantly changed, suggesting multiple repackagings. The ease with which the man in the mask manipulated the body betrayed a lack of real weight. Finally, the object showed neither the natural sagging of dead flesh nor the inertia of limbs during impacts. All the evidence points to a more prosaic version, a mannequin or a Halloween skeleton wrapped in polyethylene. And yet, despite all the logic, every time you see these frames, a chilling question flashes through your mind. What if? But what if we've been looking in the wrong place all this time? What if this whole gruesome spectacle with Daisy and the man in the mask is just a smokescreen, a diversion, and the true meaning is hidden not in what we are shown, but in what is hidden from us? As I've mentioned, in every video, a hidden frame with individual words flashes for a fraction of a second. At first, these fragments seem disconnected, but when pieced together, they form the text of an old 18th century English horror folk song, Lady All Skin and Bone. The poem's plot is a grim journey to the realization of one's own mortality. A woman goes to church, encountering symbols of death along the way, and inside the church itself, she sees a decaying corpse. Horrified, she asks the clergyman if she will meet the same fate, and she receives a merciless affirmative answer, after which she lets out a cry of despair. Some of the Easter eggs left by the creator are also present in the audio. The entire soundtrack in the videos is played in reverse, and if you reverse it back, you hear not just noise, but fragments of old Christmas recordings, such as Santa Claus Hides in Your Phonograph, or the dance tune I'm Gonna Charleston Back to Charleston. It was the Christmas recording that gave rise to one of the community's most popular theories, that Daisy is an allegory for the 12 days of Christmas. The logic, at first glance, is there. The holiday comes, everyone is happy. The holiday leaves, everyone is sad, just like in the final video. And while this combination of childhood innocence and grotesque horror certainly adds another layer of anxiety to the narrative, I personally find this version unconvincing. It seems too superficial. Why go to such lengths, creating such a complex and multi-layered performance just to make a statement about a holiday? This discrepancy between the scale of the project and its supposed purpose compels one to seek a different explanation. And now we come to my own theory, one in which I argue that the Robert Helpmann channel represents something far deeper and more personal than just its owner's dislike for Christmas. This is not purely an art project. It is an act of sublimation, a grim attempt by the creator to put his long-held, unresolved anger into the form of a horrific performance. Anger directed either at a traumatic event from his past or at a specific person who left an unhealed wound in his life. The specifics on this matter, I believe, can be drawn from the channel's name itself, Robert Helpmann. This is not a fictional pseudonym. It is the name of a real person, a famous Australian actor and dancer who died in 1986. At first glance, there's no direct connection. But if you dig deeper, two intriguing clues emerge. First, one of Helpmann's most famous roles is the terrifying child catcher from the film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And this detail resonates perfectly with how the channel's creator treats Daisy, consistently positioning her as a child. And second, and this, in my opinion, is the most crucial point, a direct link is found between Helpmann and the name Daisy. In the 1970s, the actor acquired the film rights to the biography of Daisy Bates, a British anthropologist who dedicated her life to studying Australian Aborigines. In her works, she persistently claimed a shocking practice was supposedly common among some tribes: cannibalism and the eating of their own children. And then, at some point, all these disparate details, the actor's name, his role as the child catcher, the biography of Daisy Bates, came together for me into a single terrifying picture. The information about cannibalism, linked to her name, is not a literal clue, but a monstrous metaphor. A metaphor for how a parent, in their blind desire for control, can begin to devour the personality, will, and soul of their own child. I am convinced the Robert Helpmann channel is not a story about a maniac. It is a chronicle of growing up, encrypted in grotesque imagery, told from the perspective of a victim of parental abuse. And once you adopt this viewpoint, the entire chaotic at first glance series of videos suddenly arranges itself into a coherent and terrifyingly logical narrative arc. Judge for yourselves. The first stage of this drama is an idyll of total control disguised as parental care. The videos, starting from Daisy arrives up to Daisy feeds the birds, symbolize the birth and early childhood of a child. Daisy here is completely passive. She is an object, an infant, whose existence is entirely determined by the parent's will. And in this role of an omnipotent creator, Robert is apparently perfectly happy. But in Daisy Tumble, this idyll shatters. This is the first act of defiance, the first transgression of a teenager, which immediately triggers a reaction. And that reaction is pure hypocrisy. The video's description, promising to kiss and make it better, is not an attempt to understand the rebellion, but to suppress it. To hypocritically silence the symptom while ignoring the disease itself, the child's growing desire for independence. The next video, Daisy Plays, is a continuation of the story that began in the previous chapter. Wielding authority like a knife, the parent attempts to carve out the child's will, their very self, to forcibly reclaim lost control. And Daisy Helps Out in the Kitchen only expands on this monstrous metaphor. Here, the kitchen, the sacred heart of the home, is twisted into an operating room where the child's soul is literally gutted with toxic teachings to be remade in the parent's own image and likeness. The finale of this drama, Daisy Leaves, is an inevitable act of self-preservation. The child leaves, not because they are bad, but because it is the only way to save what remains of their self from complete consumption. And that desperate text in the description, "We want Daisy back, she should be here," is no longer a cry of grief for a departed child. It is the furious roar of a tyrant who has just been deprived of his property, his object of power. And in the light of this theory, all the disparate clues suddenly acquire a chilling, yet perfectly logical meaning. The reference to cannibalism, linked to the name Daisy Bates, is no longer just a historical footnote. It is the central metaphor, the symbolic devouring of a child's soul and personality by their own parent. Every element of the performance begins to serve this idea. The mask on Robert's face no longer symbolizes mere anonymity, but the role or archetype of the controlling parent. He acts not as a loving individual, but as a faceless, despotic figure of the father or mother. The reversed recording of the song about Santa Claus, who is supposed to bring joy, becomes the perfect symbol of a distorted, toxic parental love, one that, under the guise of care and gifts, brings only suffering and suffocation. And the poem about death and decay is now read as a metaphor for the death of the self. Shall I be so when I am dead? This is the voice of the child, looking at their mentally dead, hollow parent, at what they themselves risk becoming and recoiling in horror from that fate. And in this light, the Robert Helpmann channel reveals itself to be not just a collection of creepy videos, but a coherent, grotesque allegory. An allegory of toxic family relationships, of the desperate struggle for one's own identity, and of the tragedy that stems from the rupture between a parent and a child. Only this version can explain the entire internal logic of this story, from the ostensible love at the start of the narrative to the uncontrolled aggression and its inevitable conclusion. And perhaps the true horror of this performance lies not in its brutality, but in its frightening familiarity. In the fact that this story is unfortunately all too real for so many of us. This is my interpretation of the events. A reading that, in my opinion, is the only one capable of making sense of everything happening on this channel. Of course, I could be wrong. So, if you see the concept differently, if you have your own well-structured and compelling theory, I'd be genuinely glad to discuss it with you in the comments. And with that, our investigation for today comes to an end. In the meantime, stay tuned, more mysteries lie ahead. And we still have enough light with us to break through the most impenetrable darkness hidden in the depths of the internet. Subscribe to Scary Mysteries videos right now. Immerse yourself in the unknown and become part of the revelation. Uncover the hidden